The Chronicles of Gedania, Gdansk, has never been just a city. It is an organism, a labyrinth of memory that refuses to stay still. Some say it exists in a parallel world, just half a second out of phase with ours, where time spirals instead of marching forward and the past occasionally drops by for tea. In Gedania, yesterday lingers politely by the door, and tomorrow often shows up early, eager to gossip. The streets remember more than people remember remembering. The cobblestones hum faintly at dusk, as if they too are tired of keeping secrets. Empires have risen and fallen around Gedania like waves crashing on an immovable rock. The Motwawa has watched them all: Teutonic banners, Polish kings, Prussian generals, Soviet soldiers, and kept on flowing, humming the same low tune it sang when amber was still the city's gold. Like Rome, Gedania is more than its buildings and bricks. It is a living chronicle written by time itself, constantly edited by fools and visionaries who never agree on punctuation. Copernicus once strolled along these narrow streets, charting the heavens while dodging puddles and gossip. Hevelius later built telescopes that reached for the moon, and Fahrenheit tamed the invisible whims of temperature, giving the world a measure of warmth and cold. Even Napoleon, with his relentless ambition, passed through Gedania. Though one suspects the city simply let him believe he was in charge, it's that kind of place. History here is less a series of events and more an ongoing conversation conducted over beer and stubbornness. Then came the great tragedy. In 1945, Gedania was torn apart, burned, crushed, annihilated. Its stones groaned under the weight of retreating armies, and its air grew thick with smoke and grief. But cities, like cats, have a way of finding their way home. From the ashes, Gedania exhaled, coughed, and began again. Brick by brick, window by window, it rebuilt itself, not out of pride alone, but out of something far older and more rebellious: the sheer refusal to disappear. The spirit of freedom here is quiet but contagious. It hums through shipyards, dances in factories, and whispers in classrooms. It once marched through the gates of the Lenin shipyard with banners and songs, shaking the very foundation of empires. Even now it lingers like static electricity in the air, waiting for another spark. Gedania's courage does not shout, it hums, low, steady, impossible to silence. Perhaps this is why so many restless minds have been drawn here. Hevelius, Fahrenheit, Grass, they were all dreamers of different kinds, cartographers of the unseen. I sometimes imagine them sharing a long wooden table in some smoky Gdansk tavern, Hevelius sketching lunar craters on a napkin, Fahrenheit calculating boiling points on the back of a receipt, Grass scowling poetically at them both while ordering another beer. Outside, the river would murmur, the cat on the windowsill would flick its tail, and the moon, as usual, would mind its own business. I grew up among those streets, the ones that twist and turn as if designed by a distracted god. The bridges arch like question marks over the river, and in the courtyards time seems to hold its breath. Even now, when the moon is full, Gedania visits my dreams. It smells of sea salt, yeast, and secrets. It calls softly, like an old friend pretending not to care too much, or like a cat that pretends it doesn't want to be petted but stays close anyway. I suspect that somewhere, in another version of the universe, Gedania exists again, perhaps as a floating city over a calm ocean, or a holographic simulation run by nostalgic historians who still can't agree on who started the war. Gedania is, and has always been, a city of contradictions. It shelters both heroes and fools, saints and jesters, poets and dock workers. Its taverns once echoed with sailors daring the Baltic storms, and its markets glittered with amber, spices, and gossip. Mermaids swam near the piers, or so the fishermen claimed after one beer too many. Myth here has never been exiled. It merely wears a trench coat and walks among the living. In some back alley, the Amber Queen still weeps her golden tears, careful not to stain anyone's shoes. Time in Gedania folds in curious ways. A church bell might echo across centuries. A shadow might belong to someone long dead. A piece of music might drift from a radio that hasn't worked since the 1960s. Wars, carnivals, revolutions, all layered like the pages of an overfilled book. The city often smiles at its own absurdity. It knows that eternity is a long time to stay serious. Somewhere between the hiss of the river and the clink of a beer mug, it winks at you, at itself, at history. The chronicles that follow are not linear. They are fragments, reflections and whispers. Stories told by cats, sailors, ghosts and dreamers. Some are true, some are merely probable, and some belong to a future that hasn't quite decided to happen yet. Within them are hidden the city's heartbeats. A woman with a scarf of wind knots guiding ships through fog, a raven and a chorus of frogs outsmarting the devil, a scientist rebuilding the stars, a boy who learns that even ruins can sing. Gedania endures because it refuses to forget or to stay silent. It has known annihilation, occupation and oppression, yet it insists on rebuilding, laughing and dreaming anyway. It teaches a simple truth that philosophers take entire lives to rediscover, that freedom, like the river beneath the river, always finds a way around the dam. So here begins the Chronicles of Gedania, a city of eternity and mischief, of amber light and river mist, of stars seen over beer, of laughter shared between ghosts and astronomers, of mermaids hiding under bridges and poets arguing with cats. Perhaps somewhere else, Gedania hums a different tune, but here in this world, it hums ours. Welcome, traveler. The river is waiting, the moon is awake, and the city, as always, smiles first. The legend of the raven and the frogs. As told by the river Motwawa, who has never forgotten a single story, though she sometimes edits for rhythm. Before towers pierced the fog and before clocks pretended to understand time, there was only the river and the whisper of wind through the reeds. The Motwawa flowed through marshes that glittered with dew and silence. She had not yet learned to carry ships or reflect lanterns, only clouds and dreams. Then, one morning that might have lasted a century, a raven appeared. He descended from the grey belly of the sky and landed on a half-drowned log. He was black as coal, sleek as logic, and annoyed at the world's emptiness. His name was Ravinius the Elder, though elder implied he had peers, and he didn't.
Empty. Nothing but wind rehearsing the same sentence.
From below came a croak. It was a frog, plump, mud-speckled, with eyes that carried the suspicion of philosophers and the appetite of bureaucrats.
Excuse me, but the rehearsal is nearly perfect. The river prefers it that way.
A talking amphibian? Excellent. I was getting lonely.
Lonely? We've been having a cultural renaissance here for weeks. We just performed the world's first opera about raindrops and existential dread.
Opera? In a puddle?
Every civilization begins in a puddle. Yours probably started in one too. You just built better marketing.
Thus began the first argument in what would eventually become Gdansk. It lasted 3 days and involved subjects ranging from architecture to the ethics of echoing oneself. On the 4th day, when even the fog looked bored, Ravinius sighed.
Listen, why don't we make something together? Something that lasts longer than your puddles or my patience. Let's build a city.
A city? For whom?
For stories. Everything dies except stories.
The frogs exchanged nervous glances, but eventually agreed. Frogs, after all, are sentimental beneath their sarcasm. So they began, slowly, haphazardly, optimistically. The raven brought shiny pebbles from afar, and the frogs shaped mud into walls. The river, amused, helped by flooding occasionally, just enough to test their dedication. Years passed, decades blurred into centuries. Humans arrived, noisy, ingenious, and terribly fond of claiming credit. They found ruins, foundations, and half-forgotten whispers, and decided to call the place Gedania. They built ships, towers, and churches, all in their own names, never realizing that every cornerstone hummed faintly with the laughter of frogs and the echo of ravens' wings. Ravinius stayed. He watched Copernicus pace by the shore, murmuring to the stars. Hevelius built telescopes and offered the raven a seat, mistaking him for a symbol of wisdom. Fahrenheit measured heat, unaware the raven had once invented temperature just to tease the frogs. When wars came, and they came often, the raven perched atop burning rooftops and murmured, "Again." In 1945, when Gedania burned completely, the raven's feathers turned grey from smoke. He saw people flee, others fall, and the river choke with debris and dreams. For a moment, just a short one, but real, he thought the city's story had ended.
Not yet. The frogs survived worse.
And so, Gedania, Gdansk, rose again. Ravinius watched cranes grow taller than church towers, neon lights bloom where the moon once reigned, and trams hum through Rzeszcz like mechanical beetles. He became quieter, lonelier, invisible among smartphones and scaffolding. People still noticed him, but only enough to post about him online. Then one winter, he found her. She was 6, with curls the color of honey and a stubborn streak that rivaled the Baltic wind. Her name was Anya. She lived with her grandmother in a yellow apartment block on Do Studzienki Street in Rzeszcz. She liked chocolate milk, space documentaries, and asking inconvenient questions. "Raven," he corrected, but only inside his head. She brought him bread, which he refused, then a biscuit, which he accepted for diplomatic reasons. She named him Pan Kruk, Mr. Raven. He decided to stay. What Anya never knew was that she hadn't adopted him. He had adopted her. The old raven had seen empires crumble, stars charted, and revolutions shouted into silence, but never before had he seen someone so small laugh so honestly at the sound of rain on the windowsill. From that day, he became her shadow. He perched by the lamp when she drew pictures of rockets and sea monsters. He watched her sleep, listened to her grandmother hum old Dansk songs, and occasionally offered advice, though in the mysterious form of feather gestures and odd squawks. At night, when the city quieted, he would tell stories. Not in words, he spoke in dreams. In them, Anya saw a frog orchestra, a glowing river, and a city that rebuilt itself from ashes and laughter. She never remembered the details, but always woke up smiling. One spring, Anya's grandmother grew ill. Hospitals whispered like tired angels. The raven never left the windowsill. When the old woman passed, Anya cried until her eyes ached. The raven hopped onto her shoulder and nuzzled her cheek.
"Don't go too punk rock."
And he didn't. Years went by. Anya grew taller, smarter, and more skeptical. She studied biology, like so many dreamers before her, and once joked that her raven was probably a leftover myth suffering from survivor's guilt. The raven just blinked, amused. He'd seen skepticism come and go, belief too. What mattered wasn't what humans believed, but what they loved. He stayed through her exams, her heartbreaks, her first job at the Museum of Amber. He even tolerated her cat, a fluffy intruder named Carmel, who refused to acknowledge his authority. Sometimes when Anya worked late, the raven would stare out over the rooftops of Rzeszcz, the trams sliding past, the students laughing, the distant cranes at the port outlined against the moon, and he would think with quiet pride,
So this is Gedania now.
Cities changed.
So have we. But listen, it still sings.
and it did. Below them, the trams hummed. The rain tapped softly on glass, and from a window somewhere, a girl's laughter drifted into the night.
Then the legend lives.
He vanished before dawn. When Anya finally moved out, university, adulthood, marriage, all that predictable magic, the raven followed for a while, then stopped. She cried when he said goodbye. He returned to the balcony. It was his watchtower now. He would stay until the next story needed telling, or until another child opened a window and called him Crow.
See? I told you. The frogs were right. Every civilization begins in a puddle and ends in laughter.
Kasia and the Amber Sea. Kasia lived just a few minutes' walk from Oliver Park, where centuries pressed softly against the present. The air smelled of damp earth, blooming flowers, and faintly of linden trees. mingling with the distant aroma of roasted chestnuts from a street cart. The park's ponds mirrored the sky, disturbed only by ducks gliding lazily or a curious peacock strutting across a footpath, its feathers catching the light like liquid jewels. Her small apartment overlooked this park. From her window she could hear the faint toll of the Oliwa Cathedral's bells, and most Sundays she went inside to attend the famous organ concerts. The cathedral's air vibrated with sound. The low tones made the walls, floors, and pews hum, as if the entire building were a spaceship about to lift off. Cassia felt the vibrations in her chest, in her bones, like the earth itself was breathing beneath her feet. She had always loved how the sound could make her feel at once small and infinite. One spring afternoon, a thunderstorm rolled over Oliwa. The wind rattled the windows, carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth and a distant salt tang from the Baltic. Kasia sat on her bed, sketching peacocks and ducks in the park below, when a sudden shadow appeared on her balcony railing, feathers slick with rain and eyes glinting with sharp intelligence. The bird tilted its head, regarding her as if she were the stranger. Kasia froze.
"You're soaked."
Indeed, water is unpleasant, but tolerable, and you, child, are inadequately dressed for precipitation.
Oh, you can speak.
Of course, I am a raven. We have been conversing with philosophers, kings and fools long before you learned your vowels.
Kasia's heart pounded, and the storm outside seemed to pause. The smell of wet stone and linden drifted in from the park. Rain drummed against the balcony railing. Somewhere far off, a peacock screeched in protest. She blinked. I don't even know your name."
Names are frivolous, but for the sake of polite conversation, you may call me Pan Crook.
Kasia laughed nervously, unsure whether to scream, call her mother, or offer him a biscuit. He tilted his head, unimpressed.
You may feed me, though I warn you, I'm not terribly interested in bribes. Companionship suffices, and occasionally biscuits are tolerated.
Kasia exhaled, a mix of relief and wonder washing over her. A faint gust of wind swirled through the open window, carrying the earthy scent of the park and the zoo. She realized slowly that she had not adopted this bird. He had adopted her. From that day, Pancrook became her constant companion. He followed her along the park paths, watching the peacocks strut, the ducks glide, and sometimes letting out an approving caw at the zoo animals that passed their gaze. He perched on her shoulder as she drew, listened silently when the organ played in the cathedral, and occasionally muttered remarks that made her giggle or frown. That summer, amid the scents of wet grass and salt air, she found a note tucked among her late grandmother's keepsakes, amber beads, pressed flowers, and shells. In faded handwriting it read, and so, with Pan Crook on her shoulder, one day Kasia set out toward Jilitkovo beach, following the wind, the distant scent of the sea, and the golden pulse of something older than herself. That summer, with the note from her grandmother tucked carefully into a wicker basket, Kasia set out for the Baltic shore. Walking all the way would have been too far, so she took the streetcar that ran from Oliwa to Jelitkovo, rattling over the tracks like a gentle drumbeat beneath her feet. The wind gusted through the open windows, carrying scents of linden blossoms, wet earth from Oliwa Park, and the faint tang of the approaching sea. Kasia pressed her fingers against the glass, watching the park fade behind her, the old villas and chestnut trees blur, and the streets of Oliwa roll past like a storybook in motion. Pan Crook, perched on her shoulder, preened himself and occasionally cawed at the scenery, eyes sharp and assessing. The ride itself was a quiet adventure. Every turn of the wheels brought her closer to the shore, and with each stop, the salt-laden air grew stronger, blending with the scents of warm asphalt, rain-washed stone, and faint flowers spilling from garden fences. Finally, the tram stopped at Jelitkovo, and the sea greeted her with its familiar breath of salt and wind. Cassia stepped off, and in few minutes she felt the sand warm beneath her feet, gulls wheeling overhead and waves whispering secrets in rhythm with their pull. Cassia knelt on the beach, the coarse sand warm beneath her palms, mingled with tiny shells and fragments of seaweed bleached by the sun. The wind carried the tang of salt and the faint, musky scent of seaweed drying in the afternoon heat, occasionally brushing her hair across her face. She had learned from local fishermen that the biggest and most beautiful pieces of amber often hid among the tangled, sun-baked piles of seaweed that the waves had cast ashore overnight. The piles smelled sharp, briny, a little like the hidden corners of the ocean itself, but they promised treasures if one was patient enough to sift through them. She dug carefully, brushing aside twigs, seagrass, and broken shells, letting her fingers linger on anything that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Each time she thought she had found something, it turned out to be a piece of driftwood, a dull shard of shell, or a tiny stone smoothed by the waves. The sand shifted beneath her knees as she leaned closer, and with every unsuccessful find, her heart thumped a little faster, equal parts hope and frustration. Pan Kruk perched on a driftwood log nearby, his head tilting this way and that, eyes sharp and intelligent, occasionally letting out a soft click or a low caw at a gull that had strayed too close. He seemed amused by her persistence, though sometimes his attention was entirely absorbed in the glint of the distant horizon, as if he knew something Cassia could not yet see. Time stretched. Half an hour passed, or maybe it was an hour. The sun had begun its slow, golden descent, turning the sea to molten bronze and setting the waves alight with glittering sparkles. Cassia's fingers were sticky with wet sand, her knees slightly scraped, and her hair was tangled in salty tendrils across her face. And then, suddenly, a subtle warmth hummed under her palm. She froze, heart pounding. Carefully, reverently, she brushed the sand away. There it was, a chunk of amber, larger than any she had ever seen, its surface smooth and golden, veins of darker honey running through it like sunlight trapped in resin. It seemed to glow faintly from within, as if a tiny sun had been captured in its heart, pulsing with an almost imperceptible rhythm. The scent was intoxicating, sweet, earthy, and alive, carrying a hint of the ancient sea, a perfume older than the sand itself.
Her breath caught. She held it up to the sunlight, the edges translucent and warm in her palm. The waves lapped at the shore in soft applause, gulls cried in distant harmony, and Pan Kruk hopped closer, eyeing it with unmistakable approval. "Ah," he clicked. "That's a treasure worthy of attention. Clever girl. Finally."
Cassia's fingers lingered on the amber, tracing its curves, feeling the subtle vibrations under her palm, as though it had a heartbeat of its own. For a long moment, she simply sat there, letting the glow seep into her senses, the warmth, the smell, the sound of the sea, and a strange certainty settled over her. This piece of amber was not merely a fossilized resin from long ago. It was alive with memory, magic, and story, waiting for someone who would listen. And in that quiet, sunlit moment, with Pan Kruk watching like a patient guardian and the waves whispering their endless secrets, Cassia understood that she had not just found amber, she had found a key to something larger, a thread connecting the tides, the legends of Jurata, and a hidden resonance in the world she had only just begun to discover. Her heart leapt, she reached down, and the world shifted. The sun dipped low over Oliwa Park, casting long, amber-tinged shadows across the cobblestones. Cassia sat on a bench beneath a chestnut tree, Pan Kruk perched on the armrest, feathers ruffling in the warm evening breeze. The cathedral bells echoed faintly, mingling with the gentle hum of wind through leaves and the pulse of something deeper, something beneath the soil, in the amber fragments they had discovered. She had spoken with Dawid that afternoon. His smile had been warm, unassuming, and full of trust. They had laughed over small things, school, shared memories, plans for the coming autumn. He had held her hand, steady and comforting, and yet every time she closed her eyes, she felt Jurata's presence, luminous and infinite, flowing like sunlight through her veins, whispering in rhythms older than the city itself. Cassia pressed the amber bracelet against her wrist. The pulse was faint but insistent, a heartbeat of memory and love, tragedy and magic. She realized that she did not have to choose, as if one love would cancel the other. Dawid's love was rooted in the human world, grounded in laughter, touch, and shared days. Jurata's was of the eternal, the luminous, a current that stretched across sea and time, whispering secrets into her soul. One was earthly and warm, the other vast and impossible. Both were hers in ways that did not contradict but enriched each other. As the sky deepened into violet, a shimmer appeared on the surface of a small pond nearby. Jurata emerged, amber hair flowing like molten gold across the water, eyes bright as the Baltic at dawn. Cassia's heart leapt, not with guilt, but with recognition and awe.
You have listened well, and you have loved, not recklessly, but with understanding. That is rarer than courage.
I love you, Jurata, and I love him too. I don't know how it works, or if it should.
The heart is wider than you think. It can carry impossible things if you are willing to hold them carefully.
A soft breeze carried the faint tang of salt, the warmth of resin, and the whisper of amber fragments settling deep into the earth. Cassia felt Jurata's presence recede slowly, like a tide pulling back, leaving her with the knowledge that the magic, the love, and the story would always be there, waiting for her to listen again.
She approves, and I approve. Now go. Live your human life, and remember the sea will always sing for you.
Cassia closed her eyes, breathing in the scent of the park, the cathedral's distant hum, and the pulse of the amber at her wrist. She knew that Dawid's world and Jurata's could coexist in her heart, not without tension, not without longing, but with a quiet, enduring harmony. And as twilight settled over Oliwa, as the city exhaled its stories into the evening air, she felt the pulse of the Baltic beneath the streets, the hum of amber beneath the park, and the infinite, patient heartbeat of love in all its impossible forms. She rose, brushing the dust of leaves from her skirt, Pankruk flapping to her shoulder. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Jurata's voice whispered in the wind. Somewhere in the city, Dawid waited, warm and ordinary and perfect. Cassia smiled. She was part of the story now, and the story would last forever. Love, like amber, endured, bright, golden, impossible, and utterly hers. And the world, just for a moment, felt infinitely larger, endlessly alive and full of light.